Hi all, and welcome back to this next in the series of videos aimed around sustainability for businesses and organisations. In this one we're going to be looking at procurement and supply chains, and this is a really massive, potentially complex subject area, and it can be complex because much of our supply chains now are globalised, and as I speak we have got a ship stranded in the Suez Canal, which has been pretty disruptive. And we have obviously just come out of, or coming out slowly from, the global pandemic. And in the UK, we've also had the issue of Brexit, which has considerably impacted on import-export ability. So our supply chains are those things that can be really, we want to make sure that they're working on a kind of fluid basis to ensure that our businesses are actually functioning properly. Now, I found this little graphic. There wasn't much around the whole sustainable supply chain, but this was a useful graphic. It kind of covered all of the different areas around supplier management, and looked then at the risks and opportunities that were available. So I'd recommend kind of interrogating a graphic like this when you're actually considering putting in place a kind of sustainable procurement policy. Because sustainability, as I said, it's not just about the environmental side of things. There's also a lot to do with the kind of ethical practices that come on board. And we can see this, there have been some quite high level reputational damage caused to organisations that have perhaps used supply chains that are bringing in, for example, textiles manufactured in conditions that would not be acceptable on a Western basis, and then the disasters that have happened have then caused, massive reputational damage further down the line, and rightly so as well. We can't just kind of outsource on the cheap and expect that we can get away with practices that we wouldn't be able to do so in our own country. So yeah, we're going to look at we're going to make sure that what we're actually buying from abroad is delivering to the high environmental and ethical standards that we wish to have our business kind of showing the world that we're actually doing. So you're going to be thinking about these different risks and opportunities going forward, and interrogating your supply chain, and that can in itself be quite daunting. If you're when I worked for like the NHS trusts again, there were absolutely thousands of products that they were bringing in on a regular basis, and they had thousands of suppliers attached to those products. So what we want to first consider is how to actually manage the approach sensibly. What I would recommend doing is first thinking about your top 10 suppliers, and your procurement department is likely to have quite a good reputation, so you can build a dialogue with these people. You can start talking about what sustainability practices they're doing, what you want to actually achieve in your organisation, and kind of bring these guys along with you in the journey. They will want to, because you're going to be one of their biggest purchasers, so they will want to actually do this with you. And then this is also going to help expand the sustainability thinking and make it into a more of a normalised thing to do. When you're engaging with your top 10, don't forget about the other suppliers who are also there, but you can keep them informed about what you're actually doing and the dialogues that you're having, because it will make them aware about the direction of travel. They can start thinking, yes, our customers are going to be wanting to do this as well. And again, they can start building their own journeys to actually achieve more around the sort of supply chain side of things. And then the next thing you want to be thinking about is how you can actually purchase and use your purchasing power in a more ethical way. And some of this is going to be around wanting to make sure that you're purchasing office supplies that are recycled, or that can be recycled at end of life. But it's also about then how you can actually shorten supply chains, diversify them, and potentially help build up a more vibrant local economy to you. This was quite a neat graphic I looked at, and it was talking about how at this end they've got the motor vehicles and electronic component parts and electronical manufacturing, and how these have massive, really complex global supply chains. So raw materials will be extracted, sent to a factory for processing. The factory then sends them to another place for making into component parts. that component part will go to another factory to become something bigger, etc., etc. So by inherently having such long supply chains, you are putting in a lot of risk into that, the length of, and the ability for that to not to all function perfectly within a jigsaw. If and we're likely to have more significant weather, severe weather patterns changing across the globe, then this will have a kind of knock-on effect on how well these jigsaw puzzle procurement and supply chains are actually functioning. So it is something to consider going forward. Can we move away from something that is much more global to thinking about, well, can we bring our, for example, can you get all your catering to come from an area which is in a 50-mile radius, and localise that supply chain so you're not actually having the potential knock-on effects of severe weather in other areas. And then also it's thinking about how we can move to kind of a linear supply chain into a more circular economy type model. So where your waste can be reused by other organisations or better recycled, and whether you can actually start buying in more recycled raw materials or recycled products into your organisation, or indeed how you can help your customers to be part of bringing their old goods back to your organisation and to complete this kind of circular model. And then going forward, when you're looking at your targets and evaluation, this was one of the few things I actually found about sustainable supply chains, and it's quite, again, a simple graphic. It helps you look at a strategy and think about how you're going to implement a kind of more sustainable procurement policy. A lot of it is to do with leadership. There's no point in talking to another your supply chains if you're not actually implementing sustainability themselves. They won't engage and they won't understand why. But if you're showing that you're actually leading on this, then you can make sure that you're bringing them on the journey. And then you can also have these really good dialogues about what innovations might be needed going forward, and what partnerships or new collaborations you can actually achieve to kind of develop this work. So I hope that's been useful. It's a very complex topic. Like I say, make sure that you're just kind of focusing on your key suppliers for the initial your start off point, and then engage your broader supply chain along the line, and do a nice bit of work about what can be actually developed locally to kind of build up your local vibrant economy in your area, because this will all help in kind of a longer term sustainable way. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.